Time for a January wrap-up, finally! Hey everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel, and as you can see, my January wrap-up is very late. I am totally behind on all of my videos, and I wanted to take some time out of today's video to explain the reason why, and to also finally give you the last half of my January reading. So, at the beginning of February, I adopted a shelter dog. If you follow me on Facebook in real life, or if you follow my TikTok, you probably saw a couple of videos come out about this. We decided to adopt a 1-year-old Min Pin mix from the shelter. She is adorable, but it has been a really interesting couple of weeks so far. I'm definitely exhausted, and she is a very sweet dog. We have had a very emotional week and a half trying to train her and get her used to our lifestyle. We absolutely love her, but she definitely was never really trained prior to being with us. So we have a puppy, but she also appears to have been abused in the past. So we are dealing with some behavior issues with her. I have actually consulted with a dog trainer. So it has been rough. We actually had a couple instances in the last week and a half where we've had some pretty bad biting and nipping behavior, like some food aggression. And we came very close to returning her to the shelter because my father is on blood thinners. So we were worried about her biting him and actually hurting him and causing a major issue with him. But we have decided to kind of stick it out with some dog trainers and see if we can get her behavior under control. So with that being said, I'm very behind on my videos, and I have not read much for February. I actually have been doing comfort reading. So I'm rereading through like all of my Cora Riley books because I finally have them all in paperback, which is amazing. So I just reread the entire Kimura Chronicles for like the 5 millionth time, and I'm reading through her Bound in Blood? Born in Blood? I always have the wrong name for the series, but the first Mafia series. So I'm rereading through all of those right now as like comfort reads. So I don't have any new books to talk about for mid-month wrap-up. So what should be my February mid-month is actually just going to be finally my January wrap-up. So there you go. I will insert a picture of my fluffy baby here, who is the reason why this month has been a little crazy, but she's adorable. We are trying to give her every effort we can because I think she's a great dog, but she just has some behavior issues, and it looks like she was abused in the past. So we're trying, and I'm exhausted. So I don't know that I'll have very much content this month, but hopefully as she calms down and as we learn more about what works best for her, I will be back with more updates for you guys. So now that all of that's out of the way, let's talk about my January books. The first 10 books of the month I talked about in my mid-month wrap-up, which I will link up here, so I will not repeat those books because you guys don't need to hear about them a second time. You can go back and read that video, or read that video, watch that video. I've gone crazy. No sleep. Mama ain't sleeping because she's potty training. Anyway, you can go back and watch that video and learn about what I read if you want to. So I ended up reading a total of 15 books for the month. I did have one DNF. The DNF I will go ahead and get out of the way. That one was When Heroes Fall by Giana Darling, and I honestly don't think there was anything wrong with the book. I just think that that was the last book I read for the month. I was dealing with the dogs and going on interviews and buying dog stuff and dog proofing the house and doing all of that stuff. So unfortunately my mind just wasn't really in the right headspace. So I still have the book downloaded onto my Kindle, and I think I'm going to try to go back and reread it when I'm in a little bit of a better headspace and can put actual effort into reading the book. So it's a DNF for now, but I'm going to finish later, and we'll tell you more about it when I actually finish. Okay, book number 11 for the month was The Nordic King by Karina Halle. And you guys, this ended up being my favorite book of the month. It is definitely a 5-star read. I am in love with it. I read it on audiobook because it's on the Hoopla from my library, and this one is pretty easy to figure out. He is a king from, I can't remember the country, is it Denmark? I don't know. It's some kind of Scandinavian, obviously Nordic country, and it is a nanny/governess trope. Axel is the king in this story, and 2 years prior to the story starting, his wife was killed in a car accident. There are a bunch of secrets that come out about his wife, his relationship with his wife, and some secrets about the accident and what actually killed her. But he ends up hiring Aurora to be his nanny for his 2 girls. And Aurora has her own past. She's actually from Australia originally and has changed her name and kind of started over. So of course she also has past secrets. So it's a pretty typical like nanny governess / like royalty and or I don't know, Duke or whatever. I mean, how many times have we seen this trope in romance? But it's a pretty typical trope. But what I loved about this was that the characters were really, really well thought out. And it had a good mix of like, almost feel like a Hallmark movie or one of those Lifetime holiday movies slash like a nice spicy romance. So I really loved the combination in this book. I thought the backstories were believable. I thought the way the story flowed was great. I really just, this was a 5-star read. It was enjoyable. And it was one of those books that like you could not put it down. So I loved it. And I actually found out this is book 3 of a series. So I need to go back and do the first 2. I'm listening to the first one on audiobook, which is The Swedish Prince. I think I might have them backwards, but I'm reading the first one. I have the second one also downloaded on Hoopla, so I'm going to get through those hopefully this week because I wrote them backwards. But again, this one was excellent. You can read it as a standalone. I think the series are connected because it's royalty, not because of the actual characters, but I will let you know after I go back and read the first 2. I apologize in advance because my heater is going to kick on again, and unfortunately I can't do anything about that in this room, so if you hear the heater in the background, I am so sorry. It's going to just sound like a loud fan. It just runs all the time, and I can't do anything about it. I'm really sorry. Book number 12 for the month was Beautiful and Dirty by Katrina Jackson. This is a novella that was recommended to me because I love mafia romance, and I was told that this was a novella that starts off a mafia series by Katrina Jackson. This one was actually, it was okay. It was enjoyable. It wasn't fabulous enough for me to want to continue the series, but I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. Unfortunately, I don't remember the characters' names, but basically the premise of this story was that you have a woman who goes on vacation to Italy with her boyfriend. She goes to Sicily, and she has this itinerary planned out. They've been together for a while, her and this boyfriend. They've talked about maybe getting married, but they haven't really made any like concrete plans or anything yet. And she gets really annoyed with him in Italy because he's not interested in this itinerary. Like, they're not getting along. He's not really wanting to do what she's wanting to do. She's getting super annoyed with it. And one day she has a very like tight itinerary. They have to make it to the train to go to this certain part of it. I think it was Sicily. I don't know. Whatever part of Italy they're going to. And the boyfriend just like oversleeps and forgets his passport, forgets all these documentation, his ticket and whatever. And she's like, whatever, I'm not missing this. I'm going to go without you. So you do what you gotta do. I'm sticking to my itinerary. So she just dumps him and she's like, I'm doing my thing. She goes out for her outing, and when she comes back, she finds him in bed with someone else. So she dumps him at that point and decides to just go on the rest of her Italian trip by herself. When later on down her itinerary list, she goes to this fancy restaurant where she meets the owner of the restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant happens to be in the mafia. He is a leader of the mafia, and the restaurant is kind of his cover for illegal activities, if you get my drift. And she kind of spills her heart. She has some wine and ends up spilling her heart to him and telling him that, you know, I came here with my boyfriend, ended up being a total douche, and he feels sorry for her. They end up having a quickie in the storage room of the restaurant. She does not realize that he is in the mafia, and he doesn't tell her. He's actually a married man. So if you don't like cheating, trigger for cheating. And basically at the end of this book, she goes back to America and finds out that she's pregnant. So people who have read the rest of the series say that this couple has a book that's coming up. It's not written yet, where she actually gets with this guy, apparently. But honestly, I don't really like cheating in books, even though I understand the reason for the cheating in this book. Like, it's explained, but you're still cheating, which I'm not okay with. Sorry, just not. If you don't want to be married to somebody, just divorce them. You don't need to be a cheater. And second of all, I just wasn't as intrigued by this world as I needed to be to want to continue reading an entire series about it. But I will say that the main character in this book is a person of color, so it was nice to see a person of color in a mafia romance, which I feel like is something that we don't see very much. So, good to know. Book number 13 was Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone. This one was really cute. This was another one that I got on Hoopla and listened to the audiobook too. And I'm not usually a fan of sports romance, but this one was excellent, and this was a hockey romance. So if you like sports and you like hockey, this one is a great one for you. The story starts off with Max and Rory, who are on a plane, and she is flying back to her hometown where her parents are to work with her father in business, and Max is on his way back to start a new term with a new hockey team, and they don't know each other and they don't realize that they're connected until later on in the story. But basically the plane starts to crash and they're sitting next to each other. She's terrified. She holds on to his hand. He comforts her, and she ends up really spending that time like thinking they're going to die and all this stuff, and they end up surviving the plane crash. He ends up comforting her in the days following this plane crash, where they have to take care of like, you know, getting on a flight out and getting all the paperwork and the interviews and what happened and whatnot out of the way. And they end up sleeping together during the time that they are there, just out of a comfort thing. Like, she's really upset, and so he comforts her, and they end up in bed. Long story short, fast forward to them both getting home. It turns out that her father is the general manager of a hockey team and wants his daughter to be his assistant manager. And Max is the new hockey player for this team. So obviously the big issue in this relationship right off the bat is that she's a woman going into a male-dominated manager role. So she's trying to build respect with teammates, and she doesn't want people to know that her and Max have a connection, because it'll make her feel like, it'll make her look bad because she's sleeping with a player. So they basically pretend like they don't know each other. And Max has a lot of really bad things that he's trying to overcome in his past, and has a bad reputation, so people keep trying to kick him off the team. And she realizes that he's a good guy and doesn't want him kicked off the team. So there's a lot of like issues they have to work through. But I have to say, this was an excellent read. I think this is my next favorite book I read this month. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The only reason I gave it half stars was because I felt like the ending was slightly rushed, but it also was well done. So like, it was rushed, but it was good enough where you really felt like it was a complete story. And I loved the two characters. And this is actually part of a series, and I hate sports romances, but I may check out the rest of the books in this series because I thought the characters were so well written. So it was also a really excellent audiobook. So if you're looking for a good audiobook, this one was really good, and I think it went by quick. It was great to listen to like when you're working and pulling reports or something. Book number 14 was The Unexpected Card by E.H. Lyon. I gave this one 4 stars. It is the story of Layla and Josh, and it's a really fun one because it has a lot of different tropes. So it's a best friend's little sister. It is enemies to lovers. It is an office romance. I'm going to ruin it, but it's a surprise pregnancy. So there's a lot of different tropes in this book, and I also listened to this one as an audiobook, and I have to say this one actually caught me off guard because I didn't have super high hopes for it, but I ended up really liking this one. So the story goes that Josh and Layla's brother, and I can't remember his name, are business partners. They own a business together, and I don't quite get what the business was, but essentially he has to go out to Las Vegas to try to make a sale for this new acquisition to the company. And Layla is the one who is really good at like the sales and marketing. She's not officially a partner in the business, but they oftentimes ask her to help get new pieces of business, and because she's so good at the sales, like she can sell you anything kind of thing. So she says, you know, y'all need to get along. I'm sending you and Josh to Vegas to get this piece of business. Try not to kill each other and get the business and come home. Well, the two of them end up flirting quite a bit and end up sleeping together in the trip to Vegas. And surprise, surprise, when she comes back home, she finds out she is pregnant. So that's the surprise thing. But what I love about this book is that it's actually a well done surprise pregnancy. It's an issue of like, she forgot to take her pill or something like that because she was out partying and forgot it or whatever. And then Josh really steps up, and he's this sort of like this playboy, can't keep in his pants, screwing everything under the sun. But when he finds out that she's pregnant, he steps up, and you see him man up. And he's like, I'm going to pay for all the doctor's visits. I'm going to be a dad to this kid. He really steps up and is like a great person. And I love how his character grew so much. And in her seeing him as this really good, strong man and good provider, she begins to realize that maybe I pegged him wrong. And so you see the two of them slowly come around and start to fall in love, and it was a great book. I really enjoyed this one a lot, and I want to check out more books by E.H. Lyon because she's a new author for me. And the last one I read was The Governess Game by Tessa. I read this one in a physical copy, but I'll put a picture of it up here because I don't have my book in front of me right now. And this is a pretty typical nanny trope. I mean, it's a duke who inherited the dukedom out of people dying in his family, and with the dukedom came 2 wards, and they're not related to him. They're related to one of the other dukes. One of the other dukes that he inherited this the dukedom from, and he is stuck raising these girls and has no idea what he's doing. So he enlists the help of a governess, and it's a typical governess trope where you see him fall in love with the governess. So it's not really surprising trope, but the thing about Tessa, she just writes these really well. So even though it's a popular trope, you're like, this was really well done. And what I really liked was the modern twist to the teaching. So this governess comes into these girls who have been shifted from household to household to household to household and have had so much instability in their life. The children are really well written, actually, which is something you don't see a lot of times in romances. Sometimes the kids are written like too young for their age or too old for their age. These girls were perfectly written, and I really liked to see how this governess came in and was like, I'm going to change what I'm doing. So for example, the girls are really obsessed with like be pirates. So she ends up, well, I'm going to teach you to be a pirate. So I'm going to teach you, like, look at the map. Let's learn geography. We're going to look at the map. We're going to talk about math. We're going to talk about, let's read our itinerary because we're pirates and we got to do our job for today. So what jobs are you doing? Why don't you read your list to me? And, you know, all this. And so it's so fun to see her, like, teach the girls. And in doing so, obviously he falls in love with her. So it's pretty typical, predictable trope, but it's Tessa Dare, and she just has a way of writing these things so well. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. It actually is a book that I got from Goodwill, and I was like, I don't know if I've read this or not because it's a little bit of an older book, and I haven't read this one yet. So if you haven't read this one by Tessa Dare, check it out. It was really well done, and it has a beautiful step back, actually, which is why I picked it up from Goodwill. And that was all the books I read for the month of January. Again, I'm so sorry this wrap up is so late in the month, but hopefully I will be back probably at the end of the month. I'll go ahead and do a February wrap up, but I gotta be honest with you guys, it's the 15th and I've read one book. I've read one book and I've reread Court Riley. That's pretty much all I've done. So comfort reading while I'm training a baby, and she's so fluffy and cute. How about another picture? Send me all your good wishes because Mama's tired. Mama's tired and Mama has cleaned up a lot of pee this week. Alright guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye!